We live in a world where more is often seen as better. But chasing more in retirement can often make you feel less secure. How much is enough when it comes to retirement? You thought I wasn't going to do anything. Hello, everybody, and welcome to SWBC's Uncharted Wealth Podcast, where we help you navigate the financial landscape on your journey to and through retirement. I'm Mike Walters. I am a certified financial planner and a wealth advisor here with SWBC. And today we are going to help you define what is enough, both financially and emotionally. It's not going to be based on somebody else's benchmark or somebody else's goals or what you hear on the internet or other podcasts, but what is your enough? So before we get into today's episode, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe if you're not already a subscriber. If you watch these episodes and you're not a subscriber, then you are considered a silly goose from here on forward. Now, in defining what is your enough, there are two traps that people fall into. There's the more trap and the enough trap, okay? So the more trap, it has to do with our culture's obsession with more, right? You have to have more money. You have to have a bigger Big Mac. You have to have a better boat or a better this, that, and the other than your neighbor. You just have to one up everybody. You got to have more hustle to get where you're going, right? Now, the problem with having more is you can kind of get into this trap of not having the actual goalpost, right? Or having the goalpost move every time you get to your next goal. So it's like climbing a mountain, and every time you get close to reaching the summit, you got a whole nother peak to climb, right? So it's just constantly moving. And so this mindset is actually going to lead to more anxiety, not peace, okay? Because you're always going to be thinking about, okay, well, I got to this milestone, I got to this objective, what else can I do? What else can I do to improve upon that? Now, in general context of terms, that's not a bad thing, but when you're thinking about your retirement and how much money you need to have, this more can lead to anxiety where you're really looking for peace of mind. So the second trap here is the enough trap, okay? And this is where you should be shifting from accumulation to alignment. So not just accumulating assets just to accumulate, but having an actual purpose behind why you're accumulating those assets. It needs to align with the goal at the end of the day, right? And so this is where purpose-driven planning comes into play. What is the purpose of building your accounts to X amount, or what is the purpose of doing any kind of tax moves now, so on and so forth, okay? You want to think about your lifestyle first and the numbers second. So, explain that a little bit, right? So what that means is think about where you want to be before assigning a number to it, right? So if you want to have a certain lifestyle in retirement, you want to be able to afford these kind of things, you want to live in this type of house, you want to be able to travel, and then work backwards to see, okay, what is that going to cost? And then that's the number you should be looking at. Instead of just, pulling a number out of a hat somewhere and say, oh, I need to have $1 million in my IRA or something like that, you think about the lifestyle first. Think about the purpose of it first and then work backwards. And this also introduces value-based decision making, right? So when you're making decisions on should you be contributing to your 401k, either pre-tax or Roth, right? There's a decision that has to be made there. When you're thinking about should I pay my mortgage off before I retire? Or when do I take Social Security? You need to think about what are your values and what values are you going to continue on into retirement? Are those decisions actually reflecting what your values are? This is going to give you a little bit of emotional clarity because you are going to replace these vague objectives with specific intentions, right? So instead of saying, well, I just want to be secure in retirement, or I just want to not run out of money in retirement, replace that with a specific intentional goal. Like, I want to be able to go spend time with my grandkids and not have to worry about money, or I want to take 8 vacations a year and be able to, get the extra drink package, or, whatever tickles your fancy. Tickle, tickle. So being more intentional with your goals instead of leaving it vague is, again, it's going to give you more clarity. And then last, what is your legacy? What is the impact that you're going to leave behind? That's a good way to start as well. So instead of thinking about, I need X number to be able to retire, well, think about, hey, when I am gone, what do I want to leave behind? Do I want to set up my kids and my grandkids for something? Do I want to leave some kind of endowment or charitable contribution to a foundation or your alma mater or something like that? Go Bobcats, by the way. That's something that you should be looking at before you start thinking about a number, okay? So philanthropy, mentorship, storytelling, are you going to be involved in the community? These are all things that you need to think about before assigning a number to it. So to kind of summarize these two things, you need to think about, what does a fulfilling retirement look like for you? Don't just say, hey, once I have X amount of money, I can stop working. Think about, what are you going to do in retirement? What's going to make you happy? There is a big problem with a lot of retirees today is when they shift from accumulation to decumulation, they don't have to work Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 again. They feel this void in their life. And so the whole point of today is to kind of be more intentional about knowing, what are you aiming for in retirement, instead of what number do I have to hit before retirement, okay? Your money should be supporting your life, not the other way around. Intentional pause here. Your money should be supporting your life, not the other way around. Start with a retirement blueprint, okay? So think about those lifestyle goals that we just talked about. Don't think about account balances yet, okay? Don't even assign a number to it yet. So think about what you want to accomplish. Again, do you want to spend time with the grandkids? Do you want to travel? Do you want to whatever it is you want to do. You sit at home, play video games all day, whatever you want to do. But start with that, and then you're going to use a simple framework, okay? Estimate what your retirement spending is going to be. How much is it going to cost to go on these trips every year? How much money do you want to make sure that you have set aside, so when you are spending time with your grandkids, are you going to be taking them places? Are you going to be buying them food? So on and so forth. Then, once you have that retirement, living expense number, subtract out what your guaranteed income is. Okay, so anything from Social Security, if you're going to be receiving a pension, if you are a wounded warrior, or you get any kind of VA benefits, those kind of guaranteed incomes, subtract that out. And then what's left is the gap that you need to cover from any kind of investments. Okay, these are the this is the gap that your portfolio needs to cover, right? So that's why I said that number from your investments should come last, because again, you're only needing to cover what that gap is from your guaranteed income sources. So once you have these numbers, this is where you're looking at the retirement equation. So you come up with a number that you need to support your lifestyle. Let's say it's $90,000 a year of living expenses. Subtract out what you're going to get from your guaranteed income sources. So hypothetically, let's say you're going to get $40,000 a year from Social Security. Then you have a gap of $50,000. This is where your investment portfolio is going to come in to cover that gap. So with a estimated withdrawal rate from a portfolio of 5%, this would put your target portfolio number at $1 million. 5% from $1 million a year would get you $50,000. That would cover your gap. And so this is what I mean by starting with your lifestyle goals first and then making your way down to, okay, well, now what do I need in my portfolio? Now, what's the cost of waiting? Now, a lot of pre-retirees will continue to work because they don't think they have enough. Now, Are you working out of necessity or are you working out of habit, right? Because that's what you're used to. Are you scared to retire? Now, like I said, it's a big change from going, working for 20, 30, 40 years into not working at all. There might be some bias in there where you feel like, well, you might just need to work, okay? So that's where you need to take a step back and say, am I working out of necessity or habit? Well, here are some things to consider where maybe waiting to retire when you actually have enough might be beneficial, okay? So there's some trade-offs like time. You're not going to get time back. You can always make money back, but you can't make time back. Same thing with your health, right? Most people are going to, their health is going to decline as they age, right? That's just a fact. So if the longer you wait to retire, you might be sacrificing some healthy years to where you could be, traveling and, spending time with the grandkids. You take them to one of these jumpy places or whatever. Maybe you can go jump around with them. I can't guarantee that you won't hurt yourself, but I say that from experience, right? Because I hurt myself the last time I took my daughter, but just saying, if you are still relatively healthy and you're still working, if you have enough, well, why not take time to go spend time with the grandkids, be able to do things that you may not be able to do even if you wait another 5 years, okay? Relationships, right? It's a relationship with your spouse, relationship with your kids, your grandkids. Are you purposefully not engaging in more deeper relationships with them because you're still working, because you're putting it off, right? Maybe we can accelerate your retirement so that way you can get to moving on these relationships, right? Because you never know how much time you're going to have. So the real cost of delaying retirement isn't always financial. It's missing out on that life that you've been saving for. You've been saving your whole life and you're working so hard to build this retirement nest egg. You may be at the point where you can actually start living comfortably if you've never done these types of calculations, right? So now would probably be a good time. So here's a good analogy. Think of retirement like boarding a flight, okay? If you keep waiting for the perfect weather, you might not ever get on the plane, okay? And so you're missing out on wonderful vacations in St. Thomas, or even if it's just taking a trip down to the coast to go do some fishing. You might be waiting forever to get on that plane. So do yourself a favor, start looking into when is enough and pull the trigger on it. Which brings us into our uncharted territory for today. So the strategy that I want to go over today in the uncharted territory is what I call the war chest. Now, this is not something that I came up with, right? There's a lot of advisors out there that use a strategy called a war chest. But I want you to think about most people approaching retirement are worried about the same things. They're worried about what's the market going to do, the timing of the withdrawals from their retirement accounts, and are they going to be secure in their income once their paycheck stops? Now, this is where this war chest strategy comes into play. Now, this is not something that I came up with. A lot of advisors use this in the retirement planning space. But the war chest is essentially 3 to 5 years at a minimum of really safe, really stable investments. So think about cash, money market, bonds, CDs, some fixed annuities, fixed index annuities, something like that. That's really safe, really stable. Now, the reason for this is in an economic downturn, you have a war chest of money to be pulling from. That way you don't have to go and sell things at a loss from the other parts of your portfolio. And it kind of helps eliminate some of those sequence of risk returns. Now, here's an example. Let's say you were going to retire in 2007.
Nope.
We all know what happened in 2008, 2009. But let's say you did have a war chest of 5 years of income already set aside. You would have been able to weather the worst of that market downturn for 2008, 2009, 10, 11, 12. You would have had 5 years to get you through the worst of that downturn. Now, 5 years wouldn't have gotten us all the way back to all-time market highs, but we would have been able to pull from that war chest without having to sell anything at a loss. Now, this is not just a financial buffer, but it's a confidence buffer. It gives you, lets you know, hey, I've got money to pull from without having to incur a loss. So it gives you a little bit more flexibility and peace of mind whether you're approaching retirement or you're in retirement, say, hey, I've got stuff set aside for, the worst of the market, whatever it can do to you. And it also lets you think no matter what the market does, you're going to start your retirement knowing that, hey, I've got these 5 years to recover if the markets do dip. And we all know that the markets do dip. I was trying to come up with something funny to say there, but I just couldn't. So, again, it protects against sequence of risk returns. It provides your equities, your stocks, your growth bucket to recover if the market does swing down. And it also provides some emotional liquidity. So some freedom to enjoy retirement without having to constantly check the market, constantly check what your portfolio is doing. Say, hey, I know I've got 3 to 5 years of living expenses set aside, so you don't have to second guess any of your spending decisions. So today I'm going to encourage all of my listeners to write down what a fulfilling retirement looks like for you. Again, don't assign any numbers to it quite yet. Just write down, what do you want to accomplish? If you've never done this before, this is a good practice for you to start thinking ahead and talking with your spouse and be like, hey, what do we actually want this to look like? It's a big change in your life. It's a big turn of the chapter into something new. And then once you know what it looks like, then you can start working backwards and assigning numbers to it. So when you know what your retirement lifestyle expense looks like, you have that annual number, then you can estimate your retirement gap, okay? Subtract out what Social Security is going to cover, subtract out if you're going to have any type of pension or guaranteed income sources already, subtract that out until that's where you're going to come up with your gap, your coverage gap. This is what your portfolio needs to cover, and then you can start worrying about hitting some magic number, okay? Now, you can also explore the war chest strategy. So if you think having 3 to 5 years of income set aside in these really safe, really stable investments, what does that actually look like in your portfolio? What type of allocation to bonds, money markets, CDs, annuities, whatever, what does that actually look like? And is that something that you feel like you can be consistent with as you're drawing income from your retirement? Would that actually give you the peace of mind that you need and give you that flexibility for when you start spending in retirement? So if you are someone who is close to retirement or in retirement, or let's say someone who is close to or in retirement and you feel like some of these strategies might help them, or if you're ready to define what your enough means for you, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Reach out to a wealth advisor here at SWBC, and we'd love to sit down with you and discuss what your fulfilling retirement looks like to you, and we can help you do that backwards math into seeing, hey, what kind of portfolio is going to cover that type of lifestyle. We're going to help you build a plan that supports your life, not just your investments. So I want to thank everybody for listening to this episode of the Uncharted Wealth podcast. As a reminder, everything that I discuss here is not to be taken as tax advice, legal advice, or investment advice, and all my opinions are my own, not for the company and any of our executives. So don't be a silly goose. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe, share this with your auntie, your grandma, and maybe even your uncle or dad, depending on who you actually like or enjoy. But share it with them, and don't forget to reach out to an advisor here if you want to learn more. The information is going to be down here at the bottom. We'd love to hear from you. Stay classy, San Diego. I'm Ron Burgundy. You are wrong, Leonidas. Okay, we're back. So start with your lifestyle goals, how we
Investing involves certain risks, including possible loss of principal. You should understand and carefully consider a strategy's objectives, risks, fees, and expenses, and other information before investing. The views expressed in this commentary are subject to change and are not intended to be a recommendation or investment advice. Such views do not take into account the individual financial circumstances or objectives of any other investor that receives them. This information should not be considered a solicitation nor a recommendation of an offer to provide any service in any jurisdiction where it would be unlawful to do so under the laws of that jurisdiction. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. Please consult with your individual tax professionals and/or attorney for additional information.